All right, we are at 5:30. We are going to go ahead and get started today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. First item on our agenda is a roll call. Ms. Lister.
Here.
Present.
Dr. Schumacher, and Mr. Tatum is absent.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is executive session. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Education of USD 501 recess into executive session for 60 minutes to discuss the confidential personnel matters related to employees, to protect the privacy of the individuals discussed pursuant to the Kansas Open Meetings confidentiality exception, and return to open session in the boardroom at 6:30 p.m. District leadership staff is invited into the executive session.
Thank you very much. There is a motion. Is there a second? Okay, Dr. Schumacher seconds. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. Ms. Lister.
The vote is open. All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and head to executive session. and get started. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Anderson, do we have anyone who might lead us in that? Thank you all for leading us in that. We appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? All right, I think Ms. Stewart Campbell has a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. Ms. Lister.
All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is school highlights. Dr. Anderson.
We don't have any formal school highlights this evening, but I will say I did get this card regarding one of our students who is starting at Harvard. So if I may, I will pull up her picture that I just sent to Mr. Gowan. So Bannon K. Beal graduated from Topeka High, also from Randolph and Meadows. And her mom is here this evening, gave me the card to share that she double majored in history and education. While at Barnard, Bannon was a student government representative. She was awarded the Student Leadership Award in 2022. She has no idea we're going to be talking about her this evening. I just happened to get the card from her. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that she was selected to be a senior marshal for Barnard's graduation. So Bannon is now studying history to be a history teacher. And she is at Harvard's Graduate School of Education. And her mom/staff member is just a proud mama. So you already saw the highlights. Today was preschool. First day of preschool is really exciting. And so many of you saw the rolling slideshow if you were already here waiting in that regard. So we are excited about our first day of preschool, which was incredibly successful, and the first day of our piloted daycare for our staff members. So we had a full class of daycare students, two-year-olds, in addition to our preschool students. Again, we didn't have any formal highlights, so those are the only few things that I wanted to be sure to mention.
All right, thank you so much. Next item on our agenda is public communication. I see we have three individuals here. Let's see here. First off is John Pardon. Mr. Pardon, are you here? All right, come on down. Now, Mr. Pardon, I'm going to read you a little spiel here. If you take a moment to wait for me to read this out for you, that way we're all on the same page as far as public communication.
Sure.
Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the board. We ask that your remarks to the board be respectful. If you should have a complaint against a specific employee, we ask that you submit your written complaint to the superintendent. If the complaint is against the superintendent, please address your written complaint to either me as board president or to the clerk of the board. Thank you very much.
My name's John Pardon. I live at 1606 Southwest Boswell Avenue. It is my informed opinion that the board should act immediately to remove the 95% attendance requirement from the recently announced premium pay incentive, amending the ESSER grant if necessary. Several of you told me privately that there must be an attendance requirement. That is false. There is no legal reason for the attendance requirement. I spoke directly with an official at the Kansas Department of Education, and he indicated that no such requirement was suggested or imposed. It is cruel to staff and against the values of our community to put teachers in a position where they have to weigh monetary compensation against their health, the health of their students and peers, and the health of the community at large. The grant for ESSER funds was written without sufficient public involvement and without the input of necessary stakeholders. I spoke directly with an official at the Shawnee County Health Department, and he emphasized that, quote, no one at the department was aware of an attendance requirement. The 95% attendance requirement was written into the grant using faulty statistics. In the grant submitted to the Kansas Department of Education for ESSER 3 funding, it is plainly stated, quote, tying attendance to our premium pay has also reduced absenteeism. The sole piece of evidence provided to support this argument is that in 2018 and 2019, the percentage of staff exceeding 95% attendance was 36%, but during the 2021 school year, the percentage of staff exceeding 95% attendance was 52%. That sounds amazing until you realize that the metric of exceeds 95% attendance does not measure what you think it might measure. For instance, let's say you have two employees with identical hours and their attendance percentages are both 94%. The percentage of employees exceeding 95% attendance is 0%. If one employee's attendance increases to 96% and the other's drops to 80%, the average attendance drops to 88%, but we can still claim that we have 50% of our employees meeting the goal. I have made an official core request for the information required to properly evaluate this policy on the 15th of this month. The district had a legal obligation to give me an official response before the end of the business day today. I have not received such a response. I urge the district to release this information to me without delay. Hypothetically, even if this plan works as stated, it will still be a failure. USD 501 has approximately 2,500 employees. If this policy results in each worker coming in 2 more days, that's the equivalent work of about 25 staff squeezed out of the existing staff. For about 2 million, we could create openings for 40 positions. With 20 million, it could be literally hundreds. For example, we could have an additional full-time substitute in every building in the district. We could use the money to hire more paras to support our high special needs population. We could retain the teachers who were hired last year using grant money. The point is this: none of these ideas were given the appropriate consideration that they deserve, and the least you can do is this time is remove the 95% attendance requirement so we're at least not torturing our teachers. All of my substance evidence is posted on my website, which is usd501issick.com. More will be published shortly. I'll publish a copy of everything I've said here. You can also read more in the recently published Topeka Capital Journal article. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pardon. Next up on our agenda is Ms. Mccall Beal. All right. I'll read the same thing I read earlier, just so we make sure we're all aware. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the board. We ask that your remarks to the board be respectful. If you should have a complaint against a specific employee, we ask that you submit your written complaint to the superintendent. If the complaint is against the superintendent, please address your written complaint to either me as board president or to the clerk of the board. Thank you.
My name is Mccall Beal. I live at 348 Southwest Greenwood Avenue. I am a junior at Topeka High. I'm the percussion captain in the band, and I have been in drumline since my freshman year. I have known Sal Cruz since I was 4 years old. This is when I started Cruise Line, his private business where he teaches children of all ages up until high school how to play drums. Sal is the kindest and most fun man you will ever meet. He was a mentor to me my entire life and continues to be. I have never once felt uncomfortable or unsafe around Sal. I say that as a woman and as someone who has known him for 12 years of my 16 years alive. Although Sal's consistency in my life changed when he was taken away from the drumline program during the 3rd quarter of last year's school year. The drumline program at Topeka High has greatly suffered in Sal's absence. Sal always made sure we acted professional in uniform, our drum cases were in line, and that we always spoke to each other and any person we met with the utmost respect. Sal is a crucial part of Topeka High's staff and family. I implore you to let him come back and heal the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Ms. Andrea Palmer. Palmer, I'll read this one more time for you. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the board. We ask that your remarks to the board be respectful. If you should have a complaint against a specific employee, we ask that you submit your written complaint to the superintendent. If the complaint is against the superintendent, please address your written complaint to either me as board president or the clerk of the board. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Good. Yeah, there's the timer. So I was like, okay, I'm Andrea Palmer. I live at 348 Southwest Greenwood. Daughter over there. I'm an alumni of Patwin Elementary, Robinson Middle School, and Topeka High, class of 1990. I've known Sal Cruz since high school with some other folks in this room. I was a sub in 501 for a couple of years. I worked as a school nurse for several years. And I'm just constantly asking questions. Like, I want to understand how do you reach kids who are struggling? What's the secret? I mean, I have friends who are school psychologists, school social workers, teachers, principals. I'm like, really, what is it? What is the bottom line thing? And the answer I would get over and over and over is relationships. It's all about relationships. You have to become a trusted adult in a student's life. That's how you reach them. That's it. Period. Relationships. I have never experienced anyone, and I would put it out there that I'm not sure there is another faculty member in Topeka Public Schools that builds relationships with students as effortlessly as Sal Cruz. His positive energy and excitement about his craft is just electric. Kids are drawn to him. His enthusiasm is infectious. They trust him. They want to be around him. They want to work hard for him, and they do, as evidenced by some of our drumline kids here today. Not everybody could make it, but Sal Cruz makes a difference in people's lives. I can't enumerate for you how many kids wouldn't have graduated if Sal hadn't been there, or how many of his former students wouldn't have become teachers themselves, educators, going on to be those kind of the mentor that he's been to my daughter, to countless other students. I just, as a parent, and just as a community member, the Topeka High Drumline is a shining star of this district. We get talked down a lot. We get trash talked a lot when we go around. My kids play sports, state champion softball back to back. You don't hear all the good news about Topeka Public Schools sometimes, but you hear about the Topeka High Drumline. People love it. It fills them with joy, leaves them with a smile on their face, and it won't be the same without Sal. So please find a way to bring him back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Palmer. Moving on to the next item on our agenda after public communication is 7, disposition of business by consent. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special projects and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of the board.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? All right, Dr. Schumacher, the second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Ms. Lister.
The vote is open. All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda, is a discussion item of, discussion item around the publishing the notice of hearing and exceeding revenue neutral rate. You have somebody coming, Mr. Minky. All right.
Good evening. Shawnette and I are here to request publication of the Code 99 after our time in July, we asked to publish or send to the county our notice of intent. Now we're ready to come back and ask you for permission to publish the Code 99. It has to be published 10 days prior to our September 1st meeting, where we'll hold our hearing for the budget adoption and the revenue neutral, exceeding revenue neutral resolution. So what I'd like to do is go through the packet that you have in front of you tonight. You got a set of pens. I've heard there's been some curiosity about what all the pens were for. So we'll walk through this quickly, but grab your green pen. And I can tell you yesterday, Shawnette and I had our budget review with Kansas Department of Ed Finance Commissioner before requesting the board's approval this evening to publish. Kansas Department of Ed made no change recommendations as we presented our budget yesterday. And our recommendation to the board is to publish the Code 99 as presented. And then again, our recommendation would be to adopt the budget and exceeding revenue neutral resolution on September 1st as presented. So if you've got your green pens, we're going to go through the Code 99 pretty quick. That very first page, if you remember back in July, we told you we wasn't going to exceed 46.008 mils. If you look at the very right column, estimated tax rate for the 2023 budget, 46.008. We did what we told you we were going to do. But if you got your green pen, at the bottom of that page in some blank space, write 62% state revenues. 62% of the revenue on this document are state revenues, and we're going to start circling things that are state revenue. Code 6, Code 8. So you see the column where it says Code 99 line, Code 6, Code 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And we're going to skip down and circle 26, 28, 29, 30, 34. Bingo. All right. Let's go back up to the 20s. Let's circle 26, 28, 29, 30, 34, 51 capers, and 62 debt service. Okay, all those are green. That's 62% of the budget are state aid funds. And if you look to the right, you'll see there are 5 funds: the general fund, the LOB, the capital outlay, special liability is a local fund, and then the bond and interest there at the bottom. Also, we levy a mill, but those are the state revenues, and that comprises 62% of this budget of total USD expenditures, 335.8 million. Back out the 61.5 million in transfers for a net USD expenditures estimated in 2023 of 274.2 million. Okay. So Code 6, Code 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 26, 28, 29, 30, 34, 51, and 62 should all be green. Those 62% of these dollars are state revenues. Take your purple pen. This one's going to be really fast. We're going to circle Code 7. We're going to circle Code 24. We're going to make a check mark by Code 30. And we're going to make a check mark by Code 34 because those are a little different. SPED and our Career Tech Ed have a little bit of federal money embedded in them. But the majority of our federal dollars are in that Code 7, as you could see. And you could see a hefty balance increase in budgeted expenditures. And those are the awarded, mainly the awarded ESSER $3, $42 million there. So 29% below your 62%, you could write 29% of the net USD budgeted expenditures or proposed expenditures for 2023 are federal revenues. Normally, we run about 18 to 21% in federal revenues, but the coronavirus relief CARES dollars through the budget cycle of 24 will prop up those federal funds for us. So then you could put the purple pen down, grab the blue pen. This will be really quick. And we can circle codes 35, gifts and grants, code 42, code 47, 53, 55, and 56. Those are going to be what would be determined as more local revenues. And that's about 9% of our budgeted dollars for 2023. Okay. So overall mill levy at that 46.08, the amount of tax to be levied, the 20 mills is by statute, every school district has to levy the 20. We levy an LOB amount in proportion to our general fund to maximize our operating dollars. If you would circle the 12.4 million and the 10.9 million in the amount of tax to be levied for code 6 and code 8, those two together comprise about 72% of the taxes levied in the general fund and LOB, and those are really our operating dollars. Okay. Capital outlay, that 5.9 million in taxes levied is 18% of the overall estimated taxes levied. And then the balance, most of the balance would be in that bond and interest to make our bond and interest payments of the 3 million. Of the general fund and the LOB is about $23.3 million in taxes levied. That represents about 17% of the budgeted legal max, though, for those two funds. So essentially what that means is about 17% of our total general fund and LOB would be local dollars, you know, from our levies locally. The rest would be general fund state aid to support those two funds. Okay. That's how we get to the net USD expenditures, and that's how we get to that final mill levy. Any questions? That's really about what it is. 62% state revenues, budgeted 29% federal and 9% local. So the next page really defines more notice of hearing information. It shows our taxes levied in 2021, 2022 actual, and then the proposed, those proposed estimates for assessed valuation come from our county. If you look at the general fund, one thing I do want to point out, if you see some really significant increases in the all other funds valuation and the capital outlay.
Gary, sorry, what page are you on? Right now?
We are on page 2. Should be right behind.
Okay.
Your code
Just want to
99.
make sure I'm there. Yeah.
Everybody there? Kind of, sort of. Okay. You see in 2021, 22, the assessed valuation general fund was 622.9 million. See that? You look to the right and it went down. Why is that the only one that went down? Well, I tell you why, because in the finance law, they did change for ever and ever, the first $20,000 of real property, your value was reduced before they started calculating the taxes. In the general fund this year, it's $40,000. So the first $40,000 of your home value has been reduced before they start calculating the taxes. So giving you a little break there. Okay. The final box there is our outstanding debt, and you could see our general obligation bond debt went down about 3.3 million, and our lease purchase principal went down a little bit for a total of $3.5 million reduction in our indebtedness, which is about a 2% reduction. Okay. So the next page again is just another look at that exceeding revenue neutral rate. And this will be the first thing we'll ask you to look at and approve after the hearings on September 1st. And it'll be approved by resolution and roll call vote. The neutral tax rate mill levy was 45.967 mills. And our adopted budget that we're recommending is 46.008 mills. And I'll show you how that impacts kind of an average home, here later in the slides. But let's look at a mill levy history real quick. That would be the blue line with about a 14-year history of what our mill levy has done. And what I'd just like us to focus on is go back a 5-year period, the next 5 slides, and I think you're going to see some correlation. If we go back to the 16, 17, 17, 18, start there and look forward 5 years, you could see kind of a trend down in our mill levy, 50.754, 50.563, 49, 48, 46. So we've really had downward pressure on that mill levy, trying to keep it as low as we can, and yet fund our programs as best we can. And the real magic is it's really related to enrollment. If we look at the next slide, there's a real correlation to enrollment. If we go back a 5-year period, you'll see a very similar trend in our enrollment. So if we go back 5 years to that 2017-18 period, you could see, coming out of the block grant, 13,252 students, then 12,977. Again, very similar trend line down in enrollment. So everybody's got to levy 20 mills in the general fund, but that LOB is also a big part of our operating dollars, and that's where a big portion of our mill levy is. But if our student population is shrinking, our legal max, so the state aid we get is shrinking. Therefore, there is some downward pressure based on enrollment in that LOB. Does that make sense? Yep. So very, very similar. It's tied. If you look at the next slide, I think let's go past that, Scott, to that slide there. It's reflective of the general fund mill levy and the LOB mill levy. Again, you could see that the general fund is 20 mills. We don't have any say. That is by statute. Okay, that's in the formula. Every school district levies the 20, but the LOB, we have the opportunity to fund our LOB budget at 33% of what our legal max can be in the general fund, and we try to keep it there for our operating dollars. But you could see again, just clearly, if you go back 5 years, where we were at 19.97 in that LOB, this year we'll be at 14.343. Again, really close trend line to enrollment there, and that's to a great degree tied to enrollment. Okay. All right. The other levied funds, just looking at it graphically, our capital outlay and our mill levy in bond and interest. We can legally levy up to 8 mills. That's the maximum for our capital outlay. Capital outlay dollars are how we keep our buildings maintained, repairs, the roofs, the heating, ventilation, plumbing, windows, doors. That's how we keep our properties up. And then bond and interest, you could see after that 2014, 2015, the bond and interest is the gray line. What refinancing has done to that mill levy. You could see a definite trend down from that 6.89 when we issued the bonds. After refinancing, we're at 4 mills there, which has allowed us to go the other direction with capital outlay in terms of our maintenance dollars. We plan on keeping that bond and interest at that 4 mill levy until about 2028, 2029. And then I believe we'll be able to lower that to 3 mills for the run out of the payments of those bonds. So some opportunity there.
And when will that be?
2040. So the 30-year bonds, they were set to pay out in 2045 through our refinancing. The last refinancing was over $24 million in savings, but we also shortened the life by 5 years. So those bonds will pay out in 2040.
Or you're saying that we saved money by refinancing and we're paying it faster, off faster.
Absolutely. Accelerated the payment. Yep. Okay. That's mill levies. What's all that jazz got to do with an average guy's house? Let's look at assessed valuations. And did everybody get a notice in the mail? Got mine. Yeah. This is what it looks like. But let's look at assessed valuations from 2005 and 6 up through 2022-23. It's about an 18-year period. You could see from 05 to 2020, that's an average of about 0.6. If you add all them numbers up and average them, it's about a 0.6 average annual growth rate. From 16 to 20, it was about 1.54. From 2017 to 21, about 2.7. The last 2 years has averaged about 6.7% with this past year at about 8.8. So it's very out of the norm the last couple of years in terms of valuations. Matter of fact, you could look, you can see 6 years where that went backwards, the assessed valuation. So that is part of our reason for really, we want to be as fair as we can be with those mill levies. But I also know assessed valuation can go the other way. And we certainly don't want to put ourselves in a position where we cannot fund our legal max because of our mill levy. So let's look at a home valued a year ago at about $130,000. The valuation on the tax statement in July was $145,520. That was a 12% increase. You can look at the taxing subdivisions, the mill rates and the amount of tax on this property. USD 501 are the bottom three. The 20 mills is the general fund. The 7.99 in the prior year's capital outlay and the 20.386 would be the LOB, special liability, and bond and interest for us, okay? So we were at 48.385 mills for 2022 to fund our legal max. So the revenue neutral based on the property value increases would be 45.967, which says that's the mill levy that we set it at, that you collect the exact same amount of total tax, okay? So at the 45.967, our mill levy set at 46.008 because the law triggers this revenue neutral resolution. We have to do that. But if you look at our proposed rate, if you look at all the taxing entities in the yellow shaded at the bottom is $168.55. Topeka Public Schools, if you on this particular property, is 97 cents of that. Okay, so I think demonstratively that we certainly took valuations and what the average homeowner has concerns about. At the same time, I think we have fairly funded and tried to protect as much as possible our legal max in the general fund and LOB for our programs, our school programs. And we can certainly take a look at the next several slides. Something new this year, a budgetary requirement, is using needs assessment tools in the budget process, pairing allocated resources to state assessment results. So the next 4 slides, I'm going to go over and just point out a few things. It's something that I'd like you to take home and digest a little bit, think about a little bit. But what I will tell you after this review of looking at needs and pairing it with allocated resources and state assessment results, I can tell you that nothing in this data group would lead us to make any recommended changes to the Code 99. I think this is very interesting data for strategic planning and for our leadership. I do not think, particularly this year, it is not a budgetary tool, and we would not make a single recommendation based on any of this data to our Code 99. That fair? So let's look at that first slide, and essentially we're looking at data that we already create and we create a lot of data for KSDE and other people. But every year we add up all the dollars that are spent at the buildings, and we come up with a cost per pupil at the building. And it is a crazy thing to do because there's a lot of included things and excluded things. What I will tell you, essentially, this is operating dollars. We do back out the capital and equipment. So that is not in there. It's really the operating dollars. So I took the 2021 ESSA expenditures per pupil. I lined it up with head count in the schools and then ranked them highest to lowest, the buildings that we spent the most money per pupil in their respective high school, middle, and elementary levels. Okay, that makes sense. Now we have 2022 data, and it looks a lot like this. It's just skewed with the ESSER dollars. So I don't know. I mean, it really is just more federal dollars in there. So this kind of gives you an idea of really when we break down that $270 million into the school buildings, what does it mean per child? So in 2021, the district average, if you see at the bottom of the page, was $15,446 per student. The state average was $12,863 per student. And then you could see what per building. And these this data comes right off the ESSER report and right off the performance reports. So I do think as a board, you are following the new guidelines and the new statute, reviewing this data before approving our Code 99 and adopting our budget on September 1st. This data is right in the performance, finance, and learning performance reports right out of Data Central and Kansas Department of Ed. You could go to every building, it's per building, and see the same ratios. Okay. What I will tell you is that 82% of the district staff are at attendance centers. So most of our people are in school buildings. We're a school system. No big surprises there. We're not going to adjust the Code 99 based on any of that, right? 55% of our folks are teachers. And that's just looking at pure HR reports. If you had teacher in your name, you were some type of a teacher, not an instructional coach, not a dean of student. Those are just pure teachers. 55% about average. 17% of those employees were paras. You had para in your name, ELL para, special needs para. 8% of those employees were counselors, social workers, health aides, LPNs, right, mental health or physical health. 8% of our employees at an attendance center for health needs. 3% administration, not 30, right? I'm sure there are folks out there that probably think, those darn schools and governments, right? 30% of what they do is administrative. Well, it's not. It's 3% in our school buildings, which I think is very efficient. 8% other support, and hey, Minky, what's other support? That's where I told you I pulled out. Even they may be certified, they weren't teachers, right? Their job description didn't say teacher. Those athletic directors, instructional coaches, deans of students, media center supervisors, campus police officers, secretaries, office paras. That's the other. And then 3% of our staff are custodial, 6% of our staff are food service. That 6% of our staff from the food service are paid out of the food service fund. And that is one of the major funds that's a business type fund. Food service supports itself. generates the revenue based on the amount of meals they serve. And most of those dollars are federal. So 82% of our staff are in attendance centers. It breaks down per spending per pupil in the ESSA column. I can tell you, and I've said this time and time again, that about 78% of our spending is staff. Right? We're a people-driven business. This is how it's allocated per building. I think it's a good way to look at that, that per pupil spending. Something to think about. Again, wouldn't make a single recommendation on the Code 99 based on this data. Next slide is taking that very same data and just looking at ratios, students, taking students, dividing it into the number of teachers, number of paras. And again, the per pupil spend is the same, but if you look at the raw count versus a ratio, so if we look at Highland Park, the student to teacher ratio was 14, student to para 65.6 students to every para, students to counselors, social workers, health workers 85.3, and then student to administrators 213.3. I think looking at this data set again, make no recommended budgetary changes to Code 99, but I do think it's interesting that in terms of the ratios, I think there is equity in terms of staffing in most of our buildings. So again, this is not data that I would contemplate using for the overall budget, but I do think it's interesting data at the granular level. Yes, sir.
That's 20 students with one
Right.
teacher.
Right.
And the student teacher ratio is 14.
Right. So
Difference.
So again, the teacher count is purely you had teach your name, and we backed out instructional coaches. So a classroom teacher, you may have seen some of those rooms with 18 or 20 kids.
20 to 25.
Yeah.
Hidden job.
Yeah. Data that we could dig into. Probably data we could dig into. And I can tell you the HR data came from our April of 2022 staffing reports. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question, because I'm taking notes. On the first page with the blue bars, the 82% district staff, you said you back out two things. What were those two things into these averages?
Into the cost per pupil.
Mhm.
So on that ESSA report, we back out capital. So we don't put in building repairs. Like if we repaired a roof at Whitson and we didn't at McEachran, that would really skew spending per student. And we don't, we back out equipment, right? If we happen to spend more on student furniture one year in a certain building and not the other, right? That would kind of skew that data. This is just purely operational data on really those folks operationally in the building, teachers, administrators, counselors. Does that make sense?
Other questions? Okay. Do you have more to share?
Just a couple more slides and we'll end. Again, I want to emphasize that this is the part that the new statute says you have to take a look at this financial data alongside the state assessment data, right? The level 1, level 2, level 2, level 3. Well, here you have it. But again, and the metrics are math, English language arts, and science. And you're going to hear a lot about this, I think, after Shawnette and I are done here. But again, I would not incorporate any of this data. And we did not in terms of generating the final Code 99. It's just so granular that it really, I don't think it's effective for the overall budget tool, but certainly a tool that could be used for some strategic planning. But again, that data is ranked by school, by spending per student, and simply taking their level, the percentage of students in the level 1, level 2s, and level 3s and level 4s compared to their student teacher ratio, student para. So essentially, right, does the number of staff have an impact of learning? And I'm sure it does at some level, but again, nothing that would lead us to do anything different from the overall budget. And we have some notes because we did a lot of learning with this after our budget workshop, because I couldn't tell you what level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4 were. But by definition, Dr. Kip certainly helped us with that. Level 1, below grade level, not college and career ready. Please do not ask me what college and career ready means, because I don't know. And I shared that with our finance council. I don't know. I don't know how we get there. And some of these very smart educators will share that with you.
I had a question of
Yep.
Quincy being in bright red. And why is that?
Because again, I'm a numbers guy. I'm not an educator, right? Everybody that knows me knows that I'm not very smart. But Quincy is one that when I look at spend, and you look at their level 1, level 2 data, 82% of their kids at level 1 and level 2, 18% of kids at level 3 and 4, right? The new rules say we need to move all the kids into 3 and 4. When are you going to do it? It's what the new rules say. And what the reason it just stood out to me is because 82% of their kids at level 1, level 2, you're thinking, well, they're not really successful there, but 61% of their kids are at grade level. And that's why I put that yellow column, because level 2 and level 3, level 2, level 3 are at grade level. Level 2 is just not college and career ready. Level 3 is at grade level, college and career ready. But it just, I thought that was interesting.
So you're saying that at Quincy, 61% of students are where they should be or are ahead.
Math, English, language, science, right?
But
I mean, yeah.
That this new way that the legislature has asked us to look at it,
They're just saying
it makes it.
if you're a level 1, 2, when are you going to move them to level 3, 4? That's the question.
Dr. Anderson, could you explain to us and for the public levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 as we look at this data?
Yes, Dr. Kip actually is presenting next on achievement, and and he'll have the levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we'll be explaining that. If we can defer for just a few moments, and he'll do that first. Thank you.
So the other way we looked at the data, exact same data, expenditures per building, head count by school, level 1, level 2 data, and we looked at free and reduced percentages. These are right off the principal building reports, the IEP percentages, and bilingual percentages. Okay. Yep.
Is the free and reduced lunch numbers from year 21 or 22?
22. This is from the 2022 PBRs.
2022.
Yeah.
So in the year 22, 23 or 21, 22?
21, 22.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Again, data that we wouldn't use to make recommendations or as a budget tool for the Code 99. But for me, I think it, and I shared this with our finance council, it really, learning's organic. It's not financial. So, and it takes much different people, right, to do that part of it. But my job is to, and Shawnette's is to get you in front of you a budget that we think reasonably reflects what we could achieve in terms of legal max for the 2022 23 school year. And I believe our Code 99 does that. So with that, I'm going to close. And then I think with that, other questions, we'd certainly like to entertain any other questions, and then we'd ask for an action to publish as presented.
Any other questions for Mr. Minke? No? All right. Did you have one?
I just wanted to say that the way this is broken down is just so useful to us as we look at our spending equity across the district, and this is really good data for me anyway, and I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you looking at her? Thank you.
Again, what I can
Yeah,
tell you that I talk a lot, but this budget, when it gets broke down into the school buildings, I don't do any of it. Shawnette does all of it. So
Nice job.
I do the 130 lines. She does the 37,000 lines, and that's a different thing to do.
One thing the board might not all understand is that the state is requiring us to look at all of our data and how we're spending our money. And we have to show that we have worked around that information. So this information is very powerful for us.
I think just demonstratively, I can tell you it really concerned me when we spent 3.5 hours at the budget workshop this year on needs assessment, and we didn't talk one iota about funding. And that they really put the emphasis that, hey, finance people, you need to be able to demonstrate this when you bring those code 99s and those budgets to us for review. So again, that workshop's usually about 5.5, 6 hours, and we spent all morning on statutory changes and needs assessments.
Thank you for presenting at ASD and having no changes. What an accomplishment. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. So we've had time. Is there any discussion amongst us before we move to action? No? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on from discussion to action. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve and grant permission to publish the notice of hearing and exceeding revenue neutral rate for FY 2023 budget as presented.
All right, there is a motion out there. Is there a second? All right, second by here, and any other discussion? Okay, yeah, second by Ms. Schmidt, and we're going to go for a vote. Ms. Lister.
Vote is open. Mr. Tatum, you'll have to vote by hand. So the motion carries unanimously.
Right, thank you very much. Next item on our agenda, we'll jump, I believe, to number 21, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. And follow up to the report that you just heard per the legislative mandate. We began last board meeting, the last two board meetings, hearing from Ross, and then we heard from East Topeka schools. This evening, we'll hear a little bit from Central Topeka and Scott dual language. All of those together, those principals put together one PowerPoint. They're just going to outline again their barriers, their action plan, and given the number of people, they're joining us online. Dr. Kip is at the podium, I believe. Is he at the podium? There he is. And he's going to start off with sharing a little bit of data just on the heels of what you just heard. What's coming up now are the levels 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 2 being on grade level or above. So we have asked him to share, if we look at just on grade level or above, what's that percentage? If you want to see every level, what's that percentage? So he's going to walk you through every level. Then he's going to walk you through on grade level and above, because we've shown every school that information. To begin with, can you share what level 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are in answer to Ms. Bowley's question?
Yes, actually, Ms. Bowley got it right on, spot on. Okay, but for everybody else, level 1 is a student that's performing below grade level. Level 2 is a student that's performing on grade level, but not college and career ready. Level 3 is on grade level, college credit ready, and above grade level. Level 4 is higher than the grade level that they're performing at, college and career ready. So it's kind of a stair-stepped approach to proficiency. Any questions on that basic breakdown? Okay. And so basically what we have here is data by each of our buildings, the percentages of each of those categories. You'll see level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. The last column is CCR, which is college and career readiness percentages. And that CCR column is just the addition of levels 3 and levels 4. And as you can see, some of those green spots were the aforementioned areas that particularly some of our schools outperform the state. So we wanted to highlight those in green. And this is English language arts. If we scroll down a little bit more.
As we stay on those schools, and we'll kind of go back, normally we would be highlighting them as well at Convocation. And we shared that this year, Convocation being the first in person, we really focused on just our student speaker. But those schools in green are McCarter, McClure, McEachran. And this is their, I believe, 4th consecutive year outperforming the state. And if it's not outperforming the 4th consecutive year, it's certainly the 4th consecutive year of continued growth in that space, most of which has been outperforming the state. And then Randolph is at 32.8%. And Whitson as well also outperformed in this particular content area. We'll go to the next content area, then we'll pull up the other graph that shows on grade level or above. I think you have that as well, right, Mr. Gowan? Okay.
So this is the math, same kind of format, breaks it out level by level. The highlight that I do want to point out, those green boxes there, that those were above the state standards in levels 3 and 4. And again, we have McCarter, McClure, McEachran, and Meadows, which I believe Meadows was one of the first times in several years that they've actually outperformed the state in certain areas. So kudos to them for moving that needle.
And that comment is significant because of their free reduced lunch rate and the size of the building. So, often you wouldn't see that given the size and the free reduced lunch rate. At least it's not predicted that a school would outperform the state. So that's significant. And it's a little difference from the other schools that we just mentioned. Now we're going to pull up the graph that shows on grade level and above. We know that some of our students attend the military. We know that some of our students go straight to work. So we have increased over the last many years the number of industry credential courses. So students can go straight into CNA or welding, or on their pathway to nursing, have various health proficiencies. They can go straight into engineering and other industry credentials that often are high-paying dollar jobs as well. We also know we have students that go straight into college. So it's important, we believe, to know how many are on grade level. And those people that are on grade level or above that want to go directly into a particular pathway through their individual plan of study in middle school, we identify their pathway. So they can go straight into that pathway. And on grade level and above is, we believe, success for that student and really for all of our students. So it's important to know what that looks like. These are in order of the highest percentage, I believe, are they?
Correct. Yep. The blue bar is the percentage of on or above grade level. So you can kind of see a descending pattern. Orange would be below grade level. And there is a correlation between some of our more high needs schools. And again, some of those high flying schools like McEachran, just as an example, that blue bar, about 77% of the entire building at McEachran is on or above grade level. And only 23% is below grade level. So you can kind of take that same logic and work your way down and see, some of those just differences across our district in terms of English language arts. We'll go ahead and move to the math.
And as we look at that English language arts, if you're able to see the full screen, you'll see the majority of our schools are now on grade level or above. As you look at the blue line for the majority of schools, there's a small percentage that have the majority of students that are still working and in progress to meeting that on grade level or above. But majority of our schools have the majority of students on grade level or above. We're going to go to math.
Scroll down to math, please. Is there another page? There we go. Okay. And this is actually more exciting because we actually did very well in math this past year. Had some increases, but keep in mind that blue bar is on or above grade level. McEachern has 81.3% their kids. Whitson 75%. I could go on, but you can see kind of a longer blue bar in the math domains. Again, as we go down, you can see kind of that inverse, more kids, for example, at some of these real high needs schools have more kids below grade level.
And with that overview of information, if I may, the principals would like to begin their presentation and then stop and answer questions on this or on other items related to obstacles, action plans, and the needs assessment. We'll start off with the needs assessment. Thank you, Dr. Kipp. Ms. Kramer will be sharing a little bit about that, but I believe we have one of our principals that'll just kind of introduce who's going to be speaking to you tonight. We'll turn it over to our principals, and I think Ms. Kramer's here, so she'll be actually at the podium. We'll turn it over to our administrators. I think Ms. Pierce is starting us off on who's with us this evening. Go to the next slide.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Anderson, Mr. President, and board members. Tonight we have the Central and West Topeka schools, and participating are Avondale Academy, Capital City School, Early Childhood College Prep with Lowman Hill. We have French Middle School, Hope Street Academy, Jardine Elementary, Jardine Middle School. We have Landon Middle School, McCarter Elementary, McClure Elementary, McEachern Elementary, Meadows Elementary, Randolph. We have Robinson Middle School, Scott Dual Language Elementary, Topeka High, Topeka West, and Whitson. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, I believe we're going to go right into the needs assessment. Ms. Kramer.
Good evening. I get to talk to you a little bit more, kind of tagging on to Mr. Minke's presentation. We prepared for you as part of the requirement. We had to give you a building needs assessment. So for each building, we took bits of the information from Mr. Minke, from HR, from Dr. Kipp, and the test results, and tried to create one place where you could look at each building individually and then make some recommendations about funding. So that's what we're here to share with you. You got that in your board docs. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that we, like Mr. Minke said, we are already doing this well. We make sure that our ratios are correct. For example, one of the buildings has 49% of their students require either special education services and EL services. So we do a really nice job of making sure, thank you, that our ratios are equitable. We make sure that we have more special ed people there and more EL people there to support that percentage, but that's the way that we do it in every building. So with that, Mrs. Morrissey, did you make it tonight?
All right, we're going to go back to the main needs assessment page. And then we'll continue to turn it over to Ms. Kramer to move through the rest of the needs assessment on this page. I will also share that Ms. Kramer, who helped really pull together the stakeholder input, both for the ESSER grant, the current attendance incentive, as well as looking at the needs assessment for this purpose. When you do have questions, know that she really can answer any and or all of those in terms of what that looks like and what some of those things, how some of those things were developed. Having said that, Ms. Morrissey, if she is on, I know she had another event to attend to, so I want to give that just a moment. All right, we're going to turn it over to Ms. Kramer.
All right, so Mrs. Morrissey was going to talk to you a little bit about the way that We have one of the difficulties that we notice, one of the barriers continues to consistently be about mobility, truancy, tardies. And this group of principals mentioned we have some difficulties with late arrival, so people not getting their students to school on time or taking them out of school early. So that's something that they wanted to address.
And Ms. Kramer, I think another principal is on that's going to address the rest of the list.
Absolutely.
If Ms. Morrissey does come at the end, the tardies, she really does want to talk about that because as you know, the high schools don't have traditional school buses, but we do have a partnership with Topeka Metro where we offer bus service to students, but coming late or leaving early continues to be an opportunity. And so if Ms. Morrissey doesn't come to speak to that, we'll be asking a principal to do that. We're going to go ahead and turn it over to Real McCoy, who's going to talk a little bit more about the rest of this list.
All right, I think, is that the right one for me? Well, it doesn't matter. I'll talk to whatever. I'm really good at talking. So if we're looking at some of this, is this the next slide, please? On the attendance, communication barriers. Communication barriers, I think that's you, Ms. Gorsh.
Yes, it is. Good evening, everyone. I'm here with my assistant principal, Lisa Martinez from Scott Dual Language Magnet Elementary. One of the barriers that we discussed was communication barriers, and these challenges refer to differences in language spoken at home and languages spoken by the majority of teachers or staff. And though here at Scott Dual Language Magnet, we do have a lot of resources to reach out to families who speak Spanish, many schools struggle to be able to consistently engage families and students whose first language is other than English. And it's especially true in the areas noted of technology and troubleshooting, and also with just understanding the whole education system. Then the next bullet is transportation issues. And this refers to the lack of bus drivers and the reduction in routes and mileage for busing. A lot of families have really struggled with the 1.75 mile mark that qualifies them for busing, and it has put a strain on our families. Pairing that with gas prices, this is a barrier to make sure that the kids are able to get to school. The next bullet is regarding large numbers of students in special education, English learners, and at-risk students. Many buildings have a large percentage of students who need extra support. In our building, for example, 62% of our students access either special education or EL services, and 81% are classified as having a low socioeconomic status.
Great. And if we could get Mrs. Pomeroy and Mr. Hare.
Right. So I was going to tag team on the our kids with bilingual and things like that. Also being a newcomer school in the district, and what a lot of people don't know is I have about 17 or 18 countries that are represented here. So we talk about some of those barriers. We talk about things like even some of my newcomer kids that haven't been to school in middle school since kindergarten and before, so they don't even come to school knowing their language, their first language, writing or reading. Some have not had schooling before, and just with 17 or 18 different cultures coming in, or countries just coming in, just the culture things that we have to deal with. For example, some of our new students who came from the Ukraine, barriers of just about Topeka, and to be honest with you, about like the Monday morning tornado siren and that teaching that we have to do, because in their country, a siren like that means something totally different at this time of the year or this time of what's going on. So knowing some of those things are also barrier. And then as a newcomer school too, a lot of my kids who come in the first year and even within their first year, barely after their first year, are expected by the state of Kansas to be proficient in math and reading at grade level, and it's not even their first language or haven't been at school. So some of those are barriers as well for our students. And then with the poverty levels, obviously, just with the basic needs of our kids coming in currently with the high price of food and gas and things like that, a lot of that does affect our children, and coming to school ready to learn, just getting to school sometimes with gas prices. We talked about attendance issues, and we'll touch base probably on that later. Just the one car, and maybe one car is all that's going to go out and get kids to school, or maybe not even come to school because there's not money if they're not less eligible and things like that. So, or just being evicted because they can't pay their bills, and so that increases their mobility.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Pomeroy, Jardine Elementary. Something that we were also talking about as we learn more and more about our families and students and trauma, and really the response to teaching students in trauma has really changed and evolved so much in the last several years. And so I know that we've done a lot of work as a district and continue to do a lot of that work in talking about trauma sensitive responses, whether it's instructionally or social emotionally. But that has also been a learning curve for our staff. And so how do we respond to students who have a difficult time regulating emotions, students who have food insecurity, students who come to school with a lot of social emotional barriers that keep them from being able to learn, changes how we approach them instructionally and behaviorally. And so that has been something that has been a huge focus, I know, for all of us. And I think our response to that, and I know we're going to speak to that later, has been very good. I am very impressed with what we do as a district, but it is a barrier for sure. And then family engagement. I know that when we all kind of met as a Central and West Topeka strand, that we do believe that our family engagement is relatively good comparatively, maybe to our East Side counterparts. It is always a challenge, I think, to get families to engage in the school. And I think that, engagement looks different, coming for maybe school activities like a back to school night versus engaging instructionally and in our instructional pieces looks a little bit different. And so I think it's always a challenge for all of us to figure out how to successfully, appropriately, and positively engage our families in a way to be educational partners with us. So I know that we're always looking, that's just a barrier, I believe, for all of our schools, that we are always looking for ways to have higher engagement with all of our families.
Thank you, Ms. Pomeroy. And I believe Ms. Morrissey is on. Ms. Morrissey, did you want to make a comment before we go to the next slide about attendance, mobility, truancy, tardies?
I have just joined. My apologies for being late. I will report the twin is out of the hospital and just got home. So there's the good news, but I am in the car. I'm happy to answer questions. I would probably repeat things, but what I have heard, I would agree with.
Since you're in the car and we know, I didn't tell them why you were a bit, what you were doing, but since you're in the car, do you want us to go ahead and defer to your colleagues, Ms. Morrissey? And we are pleased to hear the outcome of your family.
I appreciate that. I'll stay on if there's questions. I'm happy to answer them, but I appreciate that.
Okay, with the board, we're going to go on to the very next slide and defer to other high school leaders. I will say, I just have to say the dedication of our leaders is exceptional. I didn't anticipate her being on this evening, so being given the note that she's on says a great deal about our people. The Central and West Topeka leaders came together for their action plan. So we'll turn it over to them to begin talking on their action plan. And they know what order they decided to speak in. So I'll turn it over to the team.
Good evening, Dr. Artzer from McClure Elementary. And yes, as Dr. Anderson noted, we also outlined just ways we continue to be creative and innovative in addressing the various barriers we have just mentioned. And so to start us off, one, we are committed to partnering, as Mrs. Pomeroy stated, with families to ensure success for all of our students through various means of family engagement. From your traditional back to school events, meet the teacher nights, but also through academic and social emotional family engagement evening events as well. We also are dedicated to ongoing home visits, parent teacher conferences, both in the traditional sense, but also outside of those two biannual events throughout the year. We also have various forms of PTOs, site councils, but also are committed to providing communication to families in a plethora of communication platforms. In addition, we are committed to we recognize the importance of vertical collaboration, which is why we continue to commit to collaboration among feeder schools. So elementary, middle, high schools, we meet to discuss the barriers that our students are facing, ways we can disrupt those barriers, and also identify ways to ensure our students are having successful transitions between each of our buildings. And then lastly, I will just simply note that we continue to embed various mentoring type programs within our schools by utilizing community partners and available community resources. And as you can see, this is just a sample of the types of mentoring programs we have within our schools: Boys and Girls Club, Bridge Life, Lunch Buddies, foster grandparents, etc.
There are other administrators that like to comment on this slide before we conclude with the next slide and open this up for questions.
I would. This is Kathy Cooney from McCarter Elementary. And I would just like to speak that on the west side, we're definitely focused on academics. This year, we're looking forward to getting, the window just opened for fast bridge testing, and MAP testing is brand new for our district. And we're looking forward to getting all of those reports back, because it's almost like Christmas at this time of year. As soon as we get the data back, we start to drill down and see how we can meet individual needs for our students. And one of the ways that we did that very successfully was we implemented the after-school programs last year. And I know at McCarter, we had over 100 students staying after school every single night. So that was a very huge hit with our families. And we made very robust programs that were not just tutoring, but also offered some enrichment activities for students. I know that in order to close the achievement gap, the best thing that we can do is have more time on task. And so we did have strands for tutoring in each of our grade levels. And we were given the flexibility to plan our after-school programs to the unique needs of each building. So I know at our building, we had a music program, we had a running club, we had a Lego club, a someday club, and then of course the academics. And our program ran Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but I think some of my colleagues had different programs that ran a little bit differently at their buildings. But overall, we felt like that was a really nice benefit and allowed us to help catch our students up after the long COVID year of back and forth.
Thank you, Ms. Cooney. Turn it over to any final administrator that'd like to speak to this very last slide.
All right, that's me. So we also, in this group, we talked a little bit about what is really an overarching theme really for all of us, and a huge feat for us is the mental health and social emotional supports for our kids coming out of the last 2 years. These are just a few listed that we have here that we're going to speak to because they are our prominent ones, but we are always looking and adding new mental health and social emotional supports. Mr. Hare?
Yeah, so one of the things that all of our middle schools, including Cap City and Avondale, did this last year, as we started looking at the mobility of our students going building to building to building, within our school improvement plans and our CA3T plans, we decided that we needed to start teaching kids the same thing. So kids aren't learning new expectations and new rules and whatnot at each building as they go. So we're providing the same language and the same supports for kids as we teach kids. And one of those was through Second Step, which is a district initiative with all buildings have elementary to high school. That is just a social emotional curriculum. And then middle schools particularly did some Boys Town training and just working on how to equip teachers across all buildings with the same language to teach corrective teaching, teach kids how to follow expectations, using common language. So like I said, as a kid moves building to building, they are, the same expectations are there. And also coming out of COVID too, just sharpening those skills of teachers. We had some tools, but we just needed to resharpen those tools so that we can impact kids' behaviors in the classroom, but mostly the social emotional needs of our kids. And so that was one of the things we did collectively for all kids and all teachers at the middle school level.
With all of those items mentioned, thank you, Mr. Hare. We're going to open this up for questions for our board. Restorative Practices was a piece that Ms. Morrissey had introduced at Topeka High, previously started it at Eisenhower. It is being used at Avondale West, at many of the schools across central Topeka, and now in the JDC. So we have a staff member now that is being trained in restorative practices. When you look at the differences between the schools, Mrs. Kramer sent and uploaded on your board docs a really long document that shows some needs assessments for every school in the district. So you have that as well if you want to look granular at the individual schools across the district. We're going to turn this over to the board or to Mr. Munoz, President Munoz, to open this up for questions. We'll take the slide on off.
Thank you so much. So just from my perspective, it seems like there are a lot of individuals, smart individuals who know their stuff, who are really digging in and trying to figure out, how do we move our kids forward? And so I appreciate all of their effort, working in different ways, up and down. And as I think Mr. Hare said, to make sure that there is uniformity from when they enter to those last years. So I think there's an incredible amount of effort from a number of individuals. So we thank you for all of your work to get this for us. I have a number of questions, but I'd first defer for my colleagues if they want to start off with a couple of questions, get this discussion going. Ms. Boley.
I really appreciate all the effort that you are putting into these reports for us. They're very, very useful as we make decisions. One of the questions I had was around family engagement, because family engagement has been a challenge, well, since women started working. And so I'm wondering, how have you surveyed your parents? Have you asked parents what type of engagement that they want? Are you just trying to figure out good activities and hope parents come? I know it's a really complicated piece because we have parents that work different times of the day and night. So how are you trying to accomplish better engagement for our parents?
Ms. Pomeroy, and if we could have just Jardine Academy, that's a middle and an elementary that's attached to that, and then Scott Dual Language, if that's okay, Ms. Bowling.
Sure. And I know Mr. Hare and I were talking about this earlier, and just trying to kind of list out some of the things. And parent engagement was one that we really spent a long time talking about. I know that we both partner with our PTOs very closely, and our PTOs partner with each other, being a pre-K-8 campus. We plan a lot of events together. And just as an example, I know my PTO is very committed to providing family-friendly, and I know many of them are. I can only speak to mine, but I'm sure many of them are. But bringing families into the school for fun events, and maybe not, we do our title nights, and Mr. Hare and I do those together. So we invite our title, for the parent evenings to come in and learn more about title programming and title services. And we do those together as a pre-K-8 campus, but we also do things like movie nights and trunk or treats, and things where they're just coming in and enjoying the school building and doing a fun, free family event for their kids, just to get them in the school and to work on those relationships. So I know my PTO is key in planning that. When we sit down and plan that calendar together, what can we offer for our families that is something that everybody can come and enjoy, just that fellowship piece without the academic pieces. And doing things like, breakfast with buddies, whether it's the moms and dads and donuts and muffins. And I know we have got our grandparents' day coming up in just a couple of weeks. That's always got a huge turnout. And so I think that, making your building as friendly as possible to your families in a multiple different ways helps them become even more comfortable in those relationships. Because I think sometimes there's just not a comfortability, and then doing those at various times to be family friendly. And I don't know if
I'm going to interrupt just a minute to ask your teammate to kind of jump in there as well on the survey piece. That was the other part. How do you know to do all the things that you mentioned? Thank you, Ms. Pomeroy. My apologies for interrupting. Mr. Hare or anyone else that wants to speak to how do you know how to do all those things? And all of West Topeka and Central Topeka talked about the high PTO presence, which was a big difference from East Topeka. So we'll turn it back on over. How do you know which items to do, Mr. Hare? And
Right.
anyone that wants to pitch in on that, feel free.
Right. Some of that may just come out of our school climate survey just a little bit. Like not too long, a couple years ago in our school climate survey, parents were just talking about not feeling equipped to parent and needed some more skills. So we offered actually some parenting classes that my counselor did. They had a group of parents that came in. We learned a little bit about love and logic. If anybody's a love and logic fan, Jim Fay. But and we did some love and logic classes with parents. We kind of utilize that. And our PTO also does surveys on the side too and helps connect that to us. And that's actually how next week we have an all campus, just a parent night where it's just a walkthrough. The elementaries already did their back to school night, but we're doing it preschool through 8th grade. It's just a walkthrough. The PTO is providing ice cream, very non-threatening to come in. And it's really just a meet and greet and get to know the adults that are in the kids' lives.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. We're going to turn it over to Mr. Munoz for other questions.
Yep. Other questions about this? Let's go first, Dr. Schumacher and then Ms. Stewart Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to all the staff that are online for your time tonight and your time every day for the kids in our district. One of the needs that was pointed to, which maybe we felt a little bit more with the news from Metro the day before school started, was mobility and getting to school, truancy. And I don't know if there's thoughts on the action plans. I didn't necessarily see where maybe that was being addressed, but I didn't know if there was thoughts from those online. And because I know, if the kids aren't there, they're not learning. So
I'm going to open this up for those to talk about either at the secondary, if there's a high school or middle school person that wants to jump in and talk a little bit about your action plan for truancy. And since Mr. Harris talked quite a bit, if we have any other middle schools or high schools that are on that want to start, and then we'll turn it over to one of the elementary schools to pick up from there.
Sure, I can talk. This is Tim Leffert, the principal at Robinson Middle School. As far as attendance, we track the students' attendance. Each week we have a meeting with our team and we talk about each individual student that may be decreasing or increasing their attendance. At Robinson, we have attendance incentives. So students are entered into a random drawing once a month, every day of perfect attendance. That includes the fact that they arrive on time to every class and that they're present for every class. Every day enters them into a raffle that we draw at the end of the month and kind of make that a big production by presenting that to the students. Additionally, we try and partner with our social work interns to case manage some students that may not make it to school on time or make it to school very frequently. And so we try and do home visits and make sure that we are addressing those barriers. Last year, we had students that were struggling with the new 1.75 mile requirement. And so we actually got a few bikes donated for our students. Each year, we also make sure that our school resource officer and our team here puts together and participates in the National Bike to School Day. And so the staff actually goes out to different locations in the city that are in our attendance area. And then we have the students meet us there so that they can actually meet the other individuals and students that live in their area so that they feel safe when they're biking or coming to school because they have a group now that they can get to school with. And then this year, we're going to be experimenting with including text messaging to parents and making sure that we are letting them know, that we really appreciate that their student was here on time to try and make sure that we are encouraging that type of participation from our parents.
And Mr. Leffert, can you speak to the social emotional piece that you all spoke about in the meeting that wraparound support has really improved attendance? And so every one of the schools online have above a 90% attendance. However, we still struggle and are challenged with chronic absenteeism because if a student is absent for multiple days or they're homeless or any of those things that impact them being out multiple days, it's still considered chronically absent. And depending on the free reduced lunch rate, they may have more of those variables that impact them. So chronic absenteeism, which is a separate item, is still an opportunity for some schools. But overall attendance over 90% and many over 95% is the case for all of Central Topeka and West Topeka, which is impressive. Can you just very briefly mention the wraparound supports? This is just an example of a school, but many of these are shared across the community, including the pantries across the community. Mr. Leffert, did you have a sentence or two you want to mention in that regard from the meeting that you all had?
Yeah, so we do try and offer other reasons for the parents and the community to come to the school. So as you probably know, Capital City and Jardine both had harvesters, and then we added the harvesters location at Robinson, trying to address some of those other needs. But we also have family service and guidance in our schools. And so we have mental health liaisons at my school, I believe at Jardine, some other schools, we have youth development programs. So we actually have at my building 2 individuals who are employed by family service and guidance who offer classes for our students, and they work on different skills. Because we have, because I'm located, where I'm located, we have a lot of students who walk to school. So sometimes it's about encouraging the student to take the responsibility to make sure that they're making it to school on time. And then we make sure that we acknowledge when the students are here and that we're excited to have them here.
Thank you, Mr. Leffert. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Munoz.
Thank you so much. Ms. Stewart Campbell, I believe you're next.
I want to thank all the principals again for being here and all your love and dedication for your students and staff, and just being here tonight to present this and answer our questions. So we all know the extremely important correlation between student achievement and family engagement. And I'm thinking about what Mr. Hare said about how he has over 15, I think he said 15 to 18 languages other than English spoken. So even with Spanish, of course, is our second most used language in Topeka Public Schools. And I know Scott's definitely got that covered. So I guess my question's for Mr. Hare. There is just no way you have interpreters and translators for those 18 different languages. So how are you, this is a very big barrier. How are you able to engage these families? And how can we support you?
That's a great question. And you talked about languages, but even I know Scott's probably the same way. A lot of our kids who speak Spanish also come from a variety of different Spanish countries. So it's not just one culture that we're talking about either. We have multiple different kids, even with the same language, coming in with different cultures. And so, we do invite families in. We've done some celebration through our art program and our EL programs to do just some culturally relevant things to our different cultures and things like that to get, all of our kids involved and things like that. Our newcomer program, just to make kids feel welcome, we do have a flag that represents every country of our newcomers that come in, so they have a little validity of themselves and where they're coming from. The language is obviously a barrier, and recently, obviously, with our Ukraine students, there's just not a whole lot of people that speak Ukrainian out there that work in public schools, kind of thing. So we all use our Google Translate on our phones and computers. Our Ukrainian kids have been at the library and their parents taking English like every day or every other day, like all summer long as well. So they are coming along quite well in that aspect. And then the kids, they have the Wi-Fi in their phones for me, so they can translate pretty easy. And we just give them support, and especially for Ukrainian kids as well. We had to, when they came in, we had to do a little bit different than we would do for a normal newcomer that speaks Spanish, because putting them in a typical newcomer program, they would be in a room hearing Spanish and English. And we need to make sure they're only, working on the one language rather than hearing three.
She had parent night tonight, and should she come when it was over? And Dr. Anderson
Had
said,
to hunt and do some things just a little bit differently to support all of our kids. So, we work, and actually Pilar Mejia, who is now the Director of Cultural Innovations, has been remarkable in this added position with our district exactly for this. She was just working with me a little bit ago because our Ukrainian kids want to play sports. And so we are, Eisenhower has some free physicals through the Topeka High nursing office that they're going to go there tomorrow. So we are working with our Ukrainian students, and we just got the physicals translated to Ukrainian. So parents can fill those out, and we're going to transport them in district transportation over so we can get those done. So the added Dr. Mejia position has been remarkable to help get things done for us quick and to keep our kids moving in the right direction as we embrace all of our cultures.
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, I have a question here. I just want to take a step back because if we're being graded so heavily, or we're looked at in terms of those students who we have in level 1, level 2, and in level 3 and level 4 being college career ready, help me to have some greater clarity on when I walk into a classroom, what is it that I'm seeing? What are the behaviors? What are the patterns that I see that helps me to know this person is college and career ready? And I imagine that elementary school, middle school, high school, it's going to look different, right? So help me get greater clarity on what exactly we're being, pushed to sort of understand and look at.
Can I turn that over to a principal?
Absolutely.
So we'll start off with McClure, and given the levels that McClure, McCarter, and McEachran, any one of them can respond. But we'll start off with McClure to respond to how do you ensure that what should you see when they're aiming towards college and career ready at the elementary level?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you visualize that? And so I think I'm going to answer with something that we have worked on as a district for approximately 4 years now, and that's visible learning. And so when I walk into a classroom, I want to see the students are the ones driving the learning. So that can really boil down to 3 questions. The student can answer what it is that they are truly learning, why they know it's important to their learning, and how they know when they're successful in that learning. More specifically, though, as we are coming out of the virtual learning era with COVID, we are also refocused on what engagement should look like in our classrooms. And so as a district, we are also committed to ensuring that all students are engaging with high levels of rigor, which are what is corresponding to those levels 3 and 4. And then also just our students are the ones talking. Those who learn are the ones who are doing the learning. And so we should walk into a room and the students are the ones engaged, talking, and able to articulate truly what it is that they are learning.
Thank you. McEachran or McCarter or Whitson, did you want to comment before we turn it over to secondary? And anyone from secondary can comment on that as a general secondary group.
Yes, I would also say, I know that tied in with that is just John Hattie's research that a lot of our staff have done a lot of PD on, and also read a lot of his books and things on student engagement and the level of rigor. Also things like what we do at parent-teacher conferences, we kind of turn it back to, a lot of times even in the classroom, the teachers are, if they're the ones working the hardest, then there's something wrong. So students should be the ones working the hardest. And the same way when you do it student-led, have a conference, it should be the students doing most of the talking and reflecting. One of the things I've done with my teachers, even the last year, a couple of years, as I've been principal here, is and all our staff, is even when they do their evaluations, is they reflect on how they think they're performing, because I want them to understand that's what we want our students doing. We want them doing most of the work, so it's not just told to them how they're performing. They have to reflect and share specific reasons why they think that they have a level 4 or level 3, or whatever the rating might be on a page or paper that they've done. So I think having the staff do that has helped them to understand that we want them to do the same thing as far as reflecting more and taking the time to see if they sharing with their parents why they feel like they're good in an area, and also reflecting when they're not, because sometimes we're not perfect in every area. And so what they're going to do the steps are going to be to improve in those areas. So that would be something.
And the student-led conferences are moving throughout all of the schools, although McEachran was certainly a front runner in demonstrating what that could and should look like. Moving from there, if there's no one else from the M schools or from Whitson, the secondary, do we have one person that wants to speak about college and career ready? What does that look like? Visible learning is now in all of our schools across the district, which is the John Hattie research that was referred to, which we introduced 4 years ago. But beyond John Hattie, anybody from the secondary that wants to comment on what career ready would look like on the secondary level, which would cover middle and high?
Dr. Anderson, I would articulate that we do similar to what the other schools have mentioned, but we focus on two more things, and that is that students are learning collaborative structures and learning to work in teams. Businesses want students that know how to do that. The day of working individually is certainly in the past in most areas. And more importantly, that they are using the things that we have in Naviance so that they are selecting courses that match their interests and match their goals so that they truly all walk out the door in one of those 5 areas at the end of their 4-year career. So they're either headed to college, a 2-year or 4-year, they're headed into the military, they are going to go directly into the workforce or a technical school. And I think that when they learn to use that, they own that future and it helps them do the course selections that means something to them.
Thank you, Ms. Morrissey. Are there any other questions as this concludes our report?
So I mean, so if students are expected to be, differently, show up differently in a classroom, I think it makes sense when recently my daughter, we had our student conference and she was presenting it. That kind of caught me off guard, but this makes sense. But I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a parent. It would make sense that for our students to sort of help transition to this new way that they receive this sort of questioning in a classroom, but also that parents have some sort of support to also know there's a different way that I should probably engage my student, in the questions I ask, as opposed to how was school. But so my question is, what can we do to help our parents, sort of understand this different dynamic and ways that they can help their students,
Through teaching and learning, we provided videos and workshops for parents to look at learning, math nights for parents. We'll continue to do that this year. And it's not a destination, it's a journey. So we'll be doing that in an ongoing way as we get feedback from families through our climate survey. Continuing to offer, last year, mental health was a big piece that parents wanted more to learn about. Through Ms. Schmidt, 2 resources were provided to us as well, some of which we were using lightly, but now they'll be partnering, and we have a meeting with our social workers of how do we provide even that to our families in a more wraparound way. So being responsive is an ongoing journey, and through that, the Zoom and in-person sessions at every school throughout the district, you'll continue to see that. Thank you for asking that question. If parents go to our website and click on parent resources, throughout the year, they'll just continue to see additions to that, as well as the curriculum and examples online of what it looks like in a classroom today.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Dr. Bonebrick.
I didn't have to learn to think until I got to medical school, and I'm not sure these techniques are teaching students how to think. Is it just more rote memorization still? And having parents help them memorize how to think, get a problem situation that you need things you have memorized, apply them so you can think about a solution. Are we teaching them how to think?
That was part of introducing visible learning, but I will tell you that Mccall Beal, that's at Harvard right now in grad school, she sure knows how to think. And she is a graduate from Topeka High. So even well before visible learning, we are teaching and really living out this mission that we have on the wall to prepare students to be responsible, productive citizens. However, visible learning, as Dr. Artzer said so well, teaches how to think. It's really why we are continuing to look at what are systems that promote students leading the student-led conferences that Mr. Williams just talked about. But when you walk in a classroom, you should be able to say, what are you learning and how do we know? And students should be able to articulate what they're learning and how they know they'll be successful. Again, not a destination, we're not there, but certainly the journey that you can see manifested through the college prep, you can see manifested through the dual language program. I mean, you'll see evidence of that through the schools that are outperforming the state. So we are indeed, I believe, teaching students how to think. But again, I think that continues to be a journey about how do we reach all students where they are and continue to do that. Thank you for that question. I really just wanted to talk about Bannon Beal again, and I'll continue to throw that name out to say, you know, here's yet another Harvard student in grad school, as we have others in Harvard and Stanford and Princeton actually this year.
Other questions? All right, Dr. Anderson, I think that's all. Thank you to your team for being here with us and walking us through this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, principals and Ms. Cooney and Mr. Hare and everyone else whose office I see behind them. Go home. It's 8:15. And thank you for being here this evening.
Okay, moving on from there, we are on board member comments. Dr. Bonebrake. Okay, moving on, Dr. Schumacher.
I don't have much tonight. We had personnel committee before the meeting with Mr. Robbins and Dr. New and always Mrs. Whiteman. It was a great committee. We continue to try to make sure all the students in our buildings are served with the best educators. And I very much admire the team that puts a lot of hard work into making sure that we're staffed on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's all that I have.
Thank you so much. Mr. Tatum.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I in some ways I kind of apologize for being late, but in other ways I don't, because I got the opportunity to go to a student orientation event that French Middle School was doing. And I want to give a shout out. The teachers and the professionals did a great job at this event. Interestingly enough, Mrs. Hoffman said, well, I didn't think you were going to show up tonight because tonight is a board meeting. And I said, yes, but I wanted to come and meet my kids as teachers. And I actually had a chance to meet most of my son's teachers and not many of my daughters, but we had to divide and conquer. So I went with my son and my wife went with my daughter. And that's how we kind of made it work. And then I came, hightailed it over here to the board meeting, but just wanted to give them a shout out because it was a great event, very well attended, very well done. And I know there's other schools that are doing similar events right now to kind of get parents and students acclimated to what they can expect during this current school year. So yeah, that's a big part of my evening. Kind of brain fried. I was in Lawrence all day for a work conference, so I am about ready to fall over. But yeah, very very good experience, and that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ms. Schmidt.
So I just want to take a moment to thank the public that came to speak tonight. I know that sometimes board meetings can be intimidating, but we truly are here to represent you, right? Without students, without the families at Topeka Public Schools, there would be no need for Topeka Public Schools. And, you know, I thought I got to a polo for the school and it talked about students first. And we often refer to Topeka Public Schools as family. And family is about loving, giving attention, helping, support, forgiveness, acceptance, given whether it's deserved or not. So just something to keep in mind as we start the school year. Again, thank you guys for coming to speak. I appreciate that very much.
Thanks so much. Ms. Stewart Campbell.
I was going to say something similar. So to the three people who spoke this evening, yeah, thank you so much for addressing us and just using your voice to speak about a subject that you're very, very passionate about. And also thank you to the drumline for sitting here all night. I mean, really a lot of high school kids, especially when Mr. Mackey, no offense, started talking about all the financial stuff, would have been like, I'm out of here. So anyway, just thank you for being here and supporting our school district. Thank you so much to our speakers. Let's see. Oh, listening to all the principals and talking about the parent engagement piece, I had an idea. We were talking, it just came to me tonight, and I'm kind of excited about it, and I know we can do it. With Dr. Mejia in her new position as Director of Cultural Innovation, if she could figure out, and I know she can, if we could make videos, think about Mr. Hare and those 18 languages represented at Jardine in the newcomer program, and then all the other languages represented in other schools. If we could have videos for our parents in their native language that just explains things like, what does level 1 mean? What does level 2 mean? What does level 3 mean? Just a video about how school works in the United States. I think that would be extremely useful, because a lot of these families, even though we have resources on our website, they don't have the computer literacy. Some don't have computer literacy, or it can just be intimidating, like where to even go on the website. So anyway, I think Dr. Mejia could figure out a way to get that into the eyes and ears of these families who could really benefit from such a video. And what else? Oh, back to school night. It has been fun. Last night I was at Landon Middle School, the night before I was at Topeka High, and I just love the energy of back to school and meeting new teachers. And anyway, it's just been fun. So that's all I got.
Thanks so much. Ms. Foley.
The beginning of the year has felt very good in all the buildings I've been in, and the preparation of the teachers has been phenomenal. The rooms, the buildings, our custodians, everything. It's been a great beginning, and I want to thank everyone who's put that work in. Yesterday, Mr. Robbins, our president, Mr. Munoz, and myself met with the city mayor. We wanted to, Mr. Mike Padilla, and we wanted to discuss our challenges as just 501 and monies, because we happen to be an unusual district with federal buildings, state buildings, churches, just so many things that are off the tax record that we don't receive the tax money from. And there are things going on in our city to create development, and we want to be at the table. And they were very thoughtful, and their response was very encouraging to help us get to the table, to have our voice for Topeka Public Schools. So we're very excited about that. Next Friday, Kansas Association of School Boards Legislative Committee are going to meet, and we will be creating legislation that is important, not legislation, suggestions that are important for our local, state, and also federal. So I will be attending that, and we'll be developing that. And I will need to bring that back to explain and get approval from the board. So we'll be doing that. 1.75 miles for busing. Is that something the district that we could look at? If it's being identified as a barrier in all of our schools, I'm wondering if there's a way for us to maybe research that again and see if we're able to help our families with that transportation. I know we have bus shortages and driver shortages, but maybe we can try to find some solution to that for our families. Thank you.
All right, let's see here. The last committee meeting that I had was finance, which we talked about the revenue neutral rate and the way that we have to work hard to try and give our best estimate about what we'll have that mill levy at to be able to bring in funds. And what our budget is. There's two separate parts, the funds, the revenue we bring in, and then the money that we're going to spend. And so they have to be in sync. And so it's hard to do. It involves lots and lots of numbers. And as you saw, individuals who know this in and out. And so I thank our finance team, headed by Mr. Robbins, who have been working on this for months and months to get us to a point here soon in April to have something that we can work, review, and ultimately approve. Speaking of individuals who are also helping us get ready for school, I want to thank our community organizations, which involve many churches, nonprofits, businesses who put on a number of school events, back to school events to help prepare our students, make sure that they're ready, that they have the tools and supplies necessary to come to school, ready to be engaged. I think they play an important role, and they speak to this sense, as Ms. Schmidt said, that we're all family and that we all are here to be able to support each other. We all have something to give. And speaking of giving, a quick shout out to those who donated recently: Zurich Credit Union, First United Methodist Church, Southwest Publishing, and also the Emergency Connectivities Fund from the federal FCC. So thank everybody for thinking of students, for thinking of our students in particular, making sure they're prepared, ready to go so that they can be engaged, prepared, and inspired. That is it for me. Looking at our agenda, the next thing is we will go ahead and move to executive session. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Education of USD 501 recess into executive session to discuss confidential personnel matters related to employees to protect the privacy of the individuals discussed pursuant to the Kansas Open Meetings confidentiality exception, and return to open session in the boardroom. "30 minutes, please."
All right, there is a motion. All right, a motion has been made. Is there a second? All right, Dr. Schumacher, second. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Lister will have a vote. All right, we will go to executive session. Thank you, everyone.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them, and man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special, is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them, and man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special, is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them, and man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special, is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Are back out of executive session. Looking for a motion to return back to executive session.
Mr. President, I move that the board return to executive session to continue discussing a personnel matter for 10 minutes.
Okay. Motion to return back into executive session for 10 minutes. Second. Okay. Dr. Schumacher. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll go back.
Absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
It's the first day of school.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been amazing today.
I love getting to see everybody's excited faces. I have a preschooler here myself, and his energy is infectious, and it's just the promise of an awesome year.
Well, I think that's what's special is that it's their first experience with school, and to see all the kids come through and they're very excited to learn. And so I think that's what's special. I think it's going to be a great year for them.
Today is the best day. The first day of school is absolutely my favorite day of the year. Honestly, just hearing the little voices, the laughs, just the joy that they bring to this building. It's not the same place without them. And man, have they been